What's going on, everybody? It's your guy Realistic here, and I'm doing another tutorial for soundoracle.net. And in this video, what I'm going to be going over is the best AutoTune settings for rappers in 2020. All right, so this right here, it's going to work in any DAW. So just because I'm using Pro Tools doesn't mean that it's not going to work in FL or Ableton or Logic or Reason. So no worries there. Just follow along what I'm doing here, and that's it. So what tools are we going to need? It's just one. We're just going to need AutoTune today. So that's all we need. So if you've seen my videos before, you know that I'm going to start this out and I'm going to go over everything very quickly, just in case you're just here for the information. You want to get in and get out, and you don't want to spend a bunch of time going listening to me talk about a bunch of the details of how this works. And then what I'm going to do after I run through it really quick, then for everybody else that actually wants to know how things works and wants to be able to have all the technical information, then I'm going to give that information and really, you know, go through the step by step. All right, so what we got here is the settings that we're going to want here is we're going to want to have our input type set to the correct one. So, you know, this is based on, it lets AutoTune know the frequency range here that it should go off of. So if we're dealing with most women, we're going to go with soprano. Most men, we're going to go alto or tenor. But if we got somebody who's got a really deep voice, then we're going to do low male. A lot of tutorials that I've seen online say this doesn't matter. That's not true. This does matter. You're definitely going to want to choose the right selection for this. So that's step one. And then possibly the most important thing that you want to set is you want to make sure that you set the right key, and you want to make sure that you set the right scale, so major or minor. Those are really important. If you want to know how we find this information out, stay tuned after I run through this and I'll go through that. All right, then the next thing that we want to do is we want to set the retune speed anywhere between 10 and 5. Back in the day, it was more close to 0, but we want to set it between 10 or 5 for this modern rap sound, you know, what we hear a lot with like the Migos and Swae Lee and all that. And then after that, what we want to do is we want to set our Humanize knob right here, and that's just going to be able to tell AutoTune to chill out a little bit on the notes that are sustained a little too long. It doesn't have to be too fast. We just want this to be pretty light, because otherwise AutoTune's not going to react the way that we want. And that's all you got to do. You don't have to worry about flex tune. That's going to be more for trained singers and stuff like that. Natural vibrato gets a little weird once you start increasing that. We just want to talk about these little functions right here. And so let's hit play and hear what that sounds like.
In the section with your best friend, you hot, you put the show on like you see those Broadway lights. Johnny Cash with the bank, you pressed, I ain't. Got a BMC, a W flex, in the section.
And that's it. That's how you get the modern sound for AutoTune these days. That's what a lot of the rappers are using. And so it's just kind of more of a lighter approach. All right, so for everybody that wants to really see how we're doing this and really kind of dive in and know the technical aspects, let's start getting into it. So the first thing let's talk about is the key and the scale. How are we finding it out? Well, there's a couple ways to find it out. One way to find it out is if you bought AutoTune Pro, you get this free little plugin called AutoKey. Just in case you don't have AutoTune Pro, you can buy this for $50. So it's not too bad. If you don't want to shell out the money, there's a website that lets you do it for you. It finds the key of the songs. I'll actually have the link in the description below for you just to click on it. It's pretty cool. You just go to the website and then you just drop the song right in, and then afterwards it detects and tells you what the song, the key of the song is. It's pretty cool. I would say that the plugins like this and AutoKey and Song Detector and Key Finder, I would say those work like 70% of the time. So if you do it 10 times, it's going to tell you the correct key 7 times, and that's not too bad. And I use this sometimes if it's not sounding right, I'll do something else. So something else that you could possibly do is you just you take your keyboard, right, and it takes a little bit of time, but you can just kind of play along with the scales if you know your scales. So you know you play the beat and then you play a C major scale, and then if that doesn't work, then you switch over and you play a D major scale. If that doesn't sound right, then you just play E minor scale. So you just load up like a piano VST and play along with it, and keep playing until you hear the notes. You got to use your ears and stuff, and that's how you can find it. It might take you a couple minutes, but that's one way to find out. Another way is if you have something like FL has Edison, or you can use Melodyne. What I do is I'll just import the information into a program like Melodyne or something, and I'll just kind of look at what the chords are, and if I'm seeing like, you know, the chords are, I'm seeing the notes are like C, E, G, and there's like no sharps or flat, I'm like, oh, okay, that's going to be C major or something like that. So those are just some different ways that you can find out how to figure out the key and the scale, because those are really important to be able to figure out. All right, and then let's talk about our input type. This is really important, because what this does is it tells Melodyne what frequency range to focus on, because if we're dealing with somebody who has more of a soprano voice, the frequencies are going to be a little bit higher, and so we want AutoTune to know that it's got to focus on those frequencies. If it's somebody who has a deeper voice, we want AutoTune to know that it's got to focus on some lower frequencies. So this does make a difference. So if you're dealing with like, most female singers are going to be soprano. Some female singers that have a little bit lower timbre to them are going to be more in the alto area, and then most male singers and most male rappers are going to be in this alto tenor area, with a few exceptions being low male. So just in case the AutoTune is sounding a little weird, if you're working with a male rapper and you have it on alto tenor and it's not quite hitting the way you want, maybe adjust it to low male and then give it a AutoTune a whole different frequency range to play along with. All right, so then the next thing that we got to focus on is we have to focus on our retune speed. And what the retune speed does is it's going to tell AutoTune how fast that we want it to correct the pitch. So if it's set to 0, it's going to work really fast, and it's going to be computerized. Now, back in the day, like 05, 2009 and all that, when Lil Wayne and Kanye and T-Pain were using AutoTune, things were set a lot faster. Things were sounding more computerized and sounding more robotic. That's not necessarily the case these days. These days, when we hear people like Migos and Swae Lee and stuff, they still have an AutoTune sound to them, but it's not nearly as computerized. And that's because they're backing off a little bit. They're more towards that 12, 10, 5 area, somewhere around there. So it doesn't sound completely computerized. It still sounds tuned and enjoyable to the ears that everything is set. All right, so then another thing, and they didn't really use this much back for that hip-hop sound like 10, 15 years ago, was the Humanize knob. Now we're starting to see that a little bit more, because artists are starting to sing a little bit more stronger and stuff like that, and so we can use the Humanize knob. And what the Humanize knob is going to do is it's going to have AutoTune back off a little bit on the sustain note. So if a note is held out, AutoTune isn't going to react as hard, so it doesn't sound as digital when a note is held out too long. Because the longer you hold the note out, the more that we can hear it and the more obvious the AutoTune sound is. Well, when we increase the Humanize knob, AutoTune isn't going to react so much to the long sustain note, so it gives us a little bit more natural of a sound. Now for rappers, I tend to stay more in that 10 to 15 area for Humanize. If I was going to do a singer, I'd be between 20 and 50, because they're gonna usually, singers have a little bit stronger timbre to them and a little bit more training with their voice, so I would want it to be a little bit stronger. But for rappers, I don't want to be too much, because I still want it to have some of that AutoTune sound. So we'll probably set that to 12. We're gonna set our retune speed to about 6 here, and that's all we're really gonna need. We're not gonna need our flex tune. That would be more if we're doing with a trained singer, because the flex tune is going to chill out on notes when they're trying to sing in between them, or they're doing melisma, singing in between notes. AutoTune's gonna react a lot less the more we increase that. We don't want that for rappers. We want this to have more of that like modern digital sound here. So let's go ahead and hit play and see what this sounds like.
In the section, we your best friend. You hard, you thick. Put the show on like you see those Broadway lights. Johnny Cash with the bank. You pressed, I ain't. Got a BMC, a W flex. In the section, we your best friend. You hard.
All Alright, so what I was doing there was I made some adjustments. I backed off the retune speed a little bit. I might actually back off one more here. And then I increased the humanize knob. And because I was knowing some of the stuff when it was held out was kind of reacting a little too digital, I didn't want it to sound that hard with the auto-tune. And it most notably when he says BMW here, I'll show you that, and I'll hit play, and then we'll back off the humanize, and you could really hear what I was talking about.
Got a BMC, a W flex.
So when you hear W there, it doesn't sound, it sounds pitch corrected, but it doesn't sound too crazy. Let me back off the humanize and now really pay attention to it.
Got a BMC, a W flex.
See how that sounds more digital and sounds more computerized? And let's increase that a little bit here again so you can hear.
Got a BMC, a W flex.
So now it kind of sounds a little bit more natural. Even though you can still tell it's auto-tune, it doesn't sound completely crazy where it sounds just like a total computer. So those are really the important settings that you're going to want. You're going to want retune and humanize and just kind of adjust those to taste, but you don't want to overdo it like we did, back in the day, like 10, 15 years ago. Things are starting to sound a little bit more natural. And that's it. That's all you need to know for how to set your auto-tune up for this modern hip hop sound that we're hearing with like the Swae Lees and Lil Baby and Gunner and all that. That's how they're doing it. So I'm hoping that you got a lot out of this tutorial today. Hopefully there's some information that was useful. If you're getting a lot out of this but you want to see more, please feel free to comment below. Let us know what kind of tutorials that you want to see in the future, and Oracle and I can definitely make that happen. We're always trying to find the content that you want to see. If you're liking what you're hearing from me, you can find me everywhere on social media at Realistic Productions. You can find me at the web, realisticproductions.net. You can find my man Sound Oracle everywhere at Sound Oracle. And if you're looking for the best 808s, the best kicks, the best snares with the craziest loops and samples you can find on the internet right now, go to soundoracle.net. All right, till next time.